Welcome to today's myofascial moment. Today I'm going to work with my feet. Now, we showed you a neuroball previously, how to use a neuroball for feet. But a lot of times when I sit, I just like to work with the mobility of my feet. I generally focus on one and then the other. You can do both at the same time if you want, but again, I tend to like to get good quality time to one and then the other. So when I work with my feet, a lot of times I'm working with some tension down through the front of the legs, through the tops of the feet, working with trouble in the arches, sometimes through the backs of the legs. Any and all of that can be helped. So I usually start just by testing mobility in my foot, bending, flexing the toes. Now when I do this right here, I feel an immediate pull all the way up the front of the leg, which tells me this is a good place to start. So I have a good chair that's going to allow me some good support that I can just settle into. Pretty much just bend my toes until I feel that engage with just the edge of some tightness. And like I said, this for me is in the front of my foot, all the way up through here into my shin, and down here through a little bit through the top of my foot. So I'm just going to hang out here for 3 to 5 minutes. Again, good principles of myofascial release are to sink and soften into an area of tension or tightness for a minimum of 3 to 5 minutes while tissues change. Now, what that means is tissues change. It means that I feel an easing in the tightness, and as I do, I bend just a bit more. And when my toes get to as far as they can bend, I also can move my leg just a little bit to engage with the next layer of restriction, but I'm not ready for that yet. So as I soften into my own body, gravity does the work here. The weight of my leg is enough to keep that bend in my toes without any real muscular effort. And if I do want to add a little bit of extra weight, I can just put my hand on top of my knee here. You feel that in all of my toes. It's an aching almost through the front of my shin. My weight is shifting just a bit to put a bit more pressure and compression into the big toe. That's an organic movement. It's not something I'm really putting a lot of thought or effort into. As there's a softening through the top of the foot, I can just shift my weight a little bit. Starting to extend through the front of my foot a bit, not really affecting the bend in my toes, but engaging some more with that tightness through the front of my ankle. It's through the top of my big toe, right up through the front of my ankle. We tend to get stiff a lot in the feet. Ankles don't move as well as they should. It makes us prone to injury, to sprains, to strains, to breaking the ankle. You really want to try and maintain some good flexibility in the feet, some fluidity in the lower legs if you can. This is an easy way to do it. Now, one of my favorite places to do this is sitting when I'm watching a movie, sitting reading a book. It's really easy to just get a bend in my toes and let that work into any restrictions in my foot. Now that's not really quality self-treatment, but any self-treatment is usually better than no self-treatment. But if you can, hang out with me here for the next 10 to 15 minutes. We're going to spend 7 or 8 on this foot, and then 7 or 8 on the other one, I think. At least that's my plan. As you are here working with your foot, just kind of check for tension anywhere in your body. As you slow your breathing and quiet your mind, let any of that excess tension just kind of melt into the floor. There's nothing to do here, nothing to get right. You just don't want to be forcing things into a bend. Now, I have worked quite a bit with my feet. I understand I've got a fair amount of flexibility in my toes. Don't judge where your feet are. Just engage right to the edge of where you can into something that feels tight or hard or tender with as much gentleness as you can. And I can feel that opening through the front of my ankle, right where my lower leg meets my foot. That's a much needed place for me. Feels almost like my foot is twisting. Oh. As the bones in the top of the foot, the tarsals, start to get some space. It's not uncommon for foot cramps to happen. Not uncommon for a Charlie horse. Not uncommon for some fairly intense sensations. If you're able to talk through those or slow your breathing, take some deep full breaths, maybe even visualize that you're breathing into those tight areas, that's some good self-treatment happening. What you don't want to be doing is clenched in your glutes. You don't want to have your shoulders up around your ears. You don't want to feel like you're forcing yourself to do this. Let this be easy, but doesn't mean it might not come with some unpleasant sensation as bones get some space and the body starts to self-correct, which is what it feels like the bones of my foot are doing. They tend to get a bit twisted, a bit glued. We have trouble with arches, we have trouble with pronation, tend to get plantar fasciitis. This can help all of those. You might feel this up into your knee, you might feel this up into your hip. Do your best not to judge what you feel in terms of physical sensation, but simply notice. It'll give you a bit of information on where you might self-treat later. But you do want to try and stay engaged with the edge of a bit of tension. When something's eased, shift just a bit. Might be very subtle. And find that next edge of tension. Again, we talked before, the body has a natural stopping place in one layer of restriction. For me, that just happened. So I'm going to slowly come out of that. And again, just kind of test motion. Much easier to move through the ball of my foot. I could come back and work that in a different way next time. I probably will, but for now I do want to work some on this left leg. So again, oh my goodness, I just want to test motion this way. Bend and flex the toes is what I'm focused on today. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see in the video, but I can tell I have very, very limited range right through here. I can't even begin to straighten this here to get a stretch through here. And you might notice it's kind of white through there. That's an indication of restriction. You can see maybe where it's turning red right through here. This is going to cramp soon. That tells me oh my goodness, my foot's trying to do something it doesn't have space to do yet. I'm going to focus here for a minute, kind of settle into my body. That's kind of intense. Again, good myofascial release, good myofascial self-treatment happens over a period of 3 to 5 minutes or longer as you gently engage with an area of restriction. I'm not really forcing my leg here to move, and trust me, I do my best to really avoid foot cramps when I can. Now, when that does happen, the best option is to soften in your body. Most of us, when we get a foot cramp or a leg cramp, we want to immediately try and stretch it out. Cramping, especially in the bones of the feet, is an indication the body's trying to do something it doesn't quite have space to do yet. So I actually want to try and stay engaged with that without forcing. I can feel this starting to twist up into the front of my foot, where my foot meets my leg, where I said I couldn't get a bend there before. It feels quite twisted, actually. Now, your felt sense might not match your visual sense, but trust what you feel. When it feels like something's twisted inside, even when it looks like it's not, you're feeling what we call your fascial voice. That's information about what your fascial system is doing on the inside. Things that feel twisted, glued, restricted, adhered, those are all words for a felt sense of what you might become aware your fascial tissue is doing. You want to stay engaged with that, allowing it to smooth, to lengthen, to open, to rehydrate, to glide again. So your bones and joints and muscles can all function more optimally. Oh my goodness, this foot hurts. Again, I don't really have any pressure. I just got a bend there that asks something different of the top of my foot, the front of my leg. And we're on the other leg. Oh my goodness, I was tending to just add the weight of my hand to my knee. On this leg, I'm actually using it to lift just a bit to see if I can open this space a bit more. Again, it doesn't straighten like it does on the other foot. There's a lot of restriction there. I twisted this ankle a few years ago. I suspect I'm still rehabbing it. And slow your breathing. Quiet your mind. My shoulders tend to come up. You're going to let those drop and clench in your glutes and low back. Soften in your body. That's starting to ease quite a bit. So as it does, I'm just going to shift again ever so subtly in my leg and my foot, engaging with that next area of restriction. I want a good quality of work here. When you're only going to spend 10 to 15 minutes a day on self-treatment, or if you only have 10 to 15 minutes a day to spend on self-treatment, make sure it's good quality time, just in the interest of effective use of your time, efficient use of your time. I do believe some self-treatment is better than no self-treatment, but the quality of time you spend will make a difference. Don't make it a chore though, let it be easy. Toe cramps, toe cramps, toe cramps, toe cramps, toe cramps, toe cramps, toe cramps. Again, if something cramps, soften in your body as much as possible, allowing that tissue the best chance to move and change rather than pulling out of something and leaving it stuck right where it's been. Oh my goodness. This is excellent for anyone who has feet, and I don't mean that facetiously. Our feet are our first contact with our world. It's how we move. Everything above it, to some extent, depends on how well the bones of the feet, the tissues of the feet, absorb shock and impact that then is transmitted up into the legs, the knees, the hips, into the rest of the body. If that first point of contact is rigid rather than flexible, rather than having a bit of shock absorption available, then the rest of your body is going to hit with more of an impact. It's going to take more of a strain. Bones of the feet should have some flexibility and pliability. Toes should have some flexibility and pliability. It is worth the time and attention spent on the feet. Your hips and knees, your back will thank you. And that's eased quite a bit. I can feel there's still quite a bit more trouble. At some later point, I would probably want to come back and do some kneeling work on the top of my foot. Not today though. Again, these myofascial moments are just 10 to 15 minute segments. Kind of take the mystery, take the work and effort out of feeling like you need to spend all day self-treating. You don't. 10 to 15 minutes a day will do a great deal of good for your body. Again, I'm just supporting my leg, nudging into extension of that joint where my foot meets my leg. Not my favorite work, but much needed. Yeah, that's again changed through something. I can feel that start to move up into my shin. So that's a good stopping place for me today. Whew. I come out of that slowly. Again, I can feel that differently through the ball of my foot. I can feel, oh yeah, my toes need some more help. This left foot needs some more help. Thank you for joining us, and let us know how it goes. Again, your feet will thank you, your knees, your hips, your back will thank you for taking the time for a few myofascial moments every day. See you next time.